Welcome to Deep Dive. Hi, I'm Emma.
And I'm Carlos.
Yesterday, the heart of New York City basically stopped belonging to its citizens. For 10 hours, Madison Square Garden and the surrounding blocks were turned into this militarized fortress.
Yeah, a complete lockdown. And it wasn't for a United Nations summit, right? Not for a head of state. It was for a wedding.
Exactly. On July 3rd, 2026, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce got married. And it was an event that honestly just paralyzed one of the busiest transit hubs on the planet.
We're talking about over 1,000 guests.
Right, with a bridal party and custom Christian Dior haute couture, plus A-list attendees everywhere from Selena Gomez to Hugh Grant.
Adam Sandler even officiated, right?
He did, and there were private performances by Stevie Nicks and Tim McGraw. I mean, for millions of fans, it was this beautiful fairy tale, the culmination of a generational romance.
But outside those barricades, a massive wave of public anger was boiling over, which really frames the central question we are looking at today.
Right. At what point does a private celebrity milestone become, an unacceptable disruption of civic life?
And critically, how much of this huge backlash is rooted in a valid critique of billionaire excess versus, an unfair, highly gendered double standard?
Exactly. So today, we are drawing on the immediate reporting from the last 24 hours. We'll examine the city logistics, the public fallout, and the underlying sociological impacts.
So, to lay out our positions clearly, I will be arguing that closing public access around Madison Square Garden on the 4th of July weekend is an egregious abuse of wealth and influence that no charity can excuse.
And I will be making the case that the massive security footprint was an absolute, unfortunate necessity for a uniquely targeted woman who is unfairly taking the brunt of a deeply gendered critique.
Well, I guess we should just dive right in.
Let's do it. So my position rests on the undeniable reality of the threats against her. When critics point to the heavily tinted SUVs or the watermarked invitations without a location.
The Pentagon-level security, as people are calling it online.
Right, exactly. They say it sarcastically, but I argue that level of security is quite literally a matter of survival. I mean, we can't just have collective amnesia about the summer of 2024.
The Vienna plot.
Yes, a highly organized terrorist cell plotted a mass casualty attack at her concerts in Vienna. The main planner is currently serving a 15-year prison sentence. So the threat against her life is not theoretical. It's documented.
Sure, that threat is very real.
It is. Extreme security protocols are not just a diva making demands. They are a tragic necessity. Plus, the couple operated entirely within the law. They got the proper permits from City Hall. And they proactively offset their footprint with a staggering $26 million charitable donation. The backlash ignores these facts. It really just points to a double standard that penalizes powerful women while giving men a free pass.
Okay, but listen, the existence of a security threat isn't what people are disputing. The issue is how they chose to mitigate that threat. That is where the ethical failure happens.
An ethical failure?
Yes, because of the staggering scale of civic displacement. Penn Station isn't just a building, it is the central artery for hundreds of thousands of working-class commuters.
But the city approved it.
Even so, to cut off that artery on the eve of the country's 250th anniversary, while the city is dealing with a 38-degree-Celsius heat wave and a massive influx of World Cup tourists, it just shows a profound disregard for the public good.
I think profound disregard is a bit harsh.
Well, public space exists to serve the public, right? When an individual uses extreme wealth to monopolize that infrastructure for a private party, they violate the basic social contract of a city.
But they donated millions to make up for it.
A charitable donation doesn't change the fact that everyday citizens were blocked from navigating their own city. They couldn't get to their jobs or families on a major holiday. It's the ultimate privatization of public space.
Okay, but if we agree that the threat against her is real, then we have to look at the physical reality of hosting an event of this size.
Right. 1,000 global VIPs.
Exactly. 1,000 VIPs arriving at the same time in specialized vehicles. That can't just happen in a vacuum. We don't really have a societal framework for private citizens who have the security risk of a small nation.
So they take over New York?
Without the direct cooperation of city infrastructure, an event like this would cause spontaneous chaos. It would actually be far more dangerous to the general public.
I see what you're saying, but
Madison Square Garden was chosen because it's essentially an existing, highly controllable fortress. It has underground vehicle entrances, crowd control barricades, and surveillance already built in.
sure, it's a very secure building.
Right. Building that level of temporary infrastructure at a remote private estate, it would be a logistical impossibility, or it would totally destroy the local ecosystem of a smaller town. So using city infrastructure was the only mathematically viable way to safely pull this off.
I have to disagree there. That argument assumes this massive private wedding, at the specific place and time, was an absolute inevitability. It wasn't. It was a choice.
Well, people generally choose to get married, yes.
Right, but if security and safety are truly the top priorities, why choose to host it at the most heavily trafficked transit hub in North America, on the busiest travel weekend of the decade?
Because of the built-in security features.
Think of it this way. If a billionaire needs medical attention, they have every right to get the best doctors. But if they use their wealth to rent out an entire public hospital's emergency room for a non-emergency procedure, just because it has a great security perimeter, we don't praise them.
That's totally different.
A wedding isn't taking away hospital beds.
It's displacing the public who relies on that civic infrastructure. The need for security is real, yes, but leveraging that need to justify taking over Madison Square Garden on July 4th is just supreme entitlement.
But again, this wasn't a hostile takeover.
It displaced the public for a Manhattan spectacle.
I mean, your emergency room analogy really breaks down when we look at the financials. This was a legally permitted, heavily compensated municipal operation.
Compensated for some, maybe. The couple knew there would be a logistical strain. That's exactly why the $26 million philanthropic package was deployed before a single barricade went up.
I know, the Dolly Parton donation?
Yes, $2 million went directly into Dolly Parton's Imagination Library that fundamentally changes the literacy landscape for children. And if people are mad about municipal resources, that anger is just misdirected.
Misdirected how? The police were out there all day.
City Hall ran the analytics. They assessed the strain and they approved the permits. The local government calculated that the city could handle the event. So if citizens are frustrated by altered transit routes, that's a critique of the government, not a moral failing of the bride and groom.
Oh, come on. That calculation by City Hall illustrates the exact systemic failure I'm talking about. Municipal governments rarely, if ever, say no to billionaires.
Because the billionaires pay for the permits.
Right, wealth buys access. And framing a $26 million donation as a proactive offset introduces a deeply cynical idea. The idea that public space is basically for sale to the highest bidder, as long as they pay the moral indulgence fee.
Giving to a children's literacy charity is not a moral indulgence fee. It's noble.
It is noble, absolutely, but it does nothing to compensate the local economic ecosystem that got crushed yesterday. I mean, look at the manager of that Irish pub right across from the garden.
The one who went to the press?
Yeah. On a normal July 4th, Manhattan empties out. But yesterday he was stocked up with inventory and staff for the World Cup crowds. Instead, his business was effectively suffocated by a militarized security perimeter.
Well, street closures happen during parades, too.
But this blocked all organic foot traffic for a private party. That small business owner took a massive financial loss. A donation to Dolly Parton's foundation won't restock his registers.
Okay, but
And let's not forget the taxpayers. They funded the overtime for police officers who spent their holiday standing in Kevlar vests in 38-degree heat, just to serve as private security for a billionaire. Philanthropy doesn't erase that immediate localized civic damage.
the narrative that local businesses were universally decimated is just highly selective, Carlos.
Selective. He lost his biggest weekend.
But other hospitality managers in the exact same area reported that the NYPD communicated effectively. They redirected foot traffic in a way that actually sustained their business.
I haven't seen those reports.
They are out there, but I want to pivot from the city logistics for a second, because the psychology of this backlash reveals a much deeper, much uglier societal bias.
You mean the gender double standard?
Yes. Yesterday, a prominent cultural commentator literally called Taylor Swift a psychotic billionaire.
Yeah, I saw that. It was harsh.
It's not a critique of city transit policy. It is a deeply personal, vitriolic attack. And what's really revealing is Travis Kelce, the groom, a full equal partner in this marriage, is getting almost zero public fury.
Well, she is the bigger star.
He's being treated like an innocent bystander at his own wedding. This perfectly mirrors the exact double standard she has navigated for 20 years. Society strongly resents powerful, self-made women who take control of their environment.
I don't think it's just because she's a woman.
We eagerly penalize them for their ambition, but we dismiss or even celebrate the exact same behaviors in men. And by the way, the intensity of her fan culture demands this level of control.
The fan culture is definitely intense, yes.
In the weeks before the wedding, fans were dissecting her outfits for Easter eggs. They tracked a Stevie Nicks t-shirt she wore in June as proof of a musical performance. They even theorized that Madison Square Garden was just a decoy venue.
Right, the internet was going crazy.
When you live under a microscope of that magnitude, you do not have the luxury of casual logistics. You require a fortress.
Okay, I hear you. The gendered double standard in media scrutiny is absolutely real, and the different treatment of the groom in tabloid coverage is a very fair observation.
Thank you.
However, reducing this massive public fury to mere misogyny deliberately ignores the very real class anxiety driving the backlash.
Class anxiety?
Yes, the public isn't angry simply because a woman rented an arena. They are angry because they are living through a crippling cost of living crisis, and they have to watch the ultra-wealthy gleefully flaunt their immunity to the rules of everyday life.
But she didn't break any rules. She followed the city's rules.
If we want to test the gender theory, we only need to look at Jeff Bezos' wedding in Venice in 2025.
Oh, right.
He is a male tech billionaire, and his event triggered near riots among the Italian locals who were furious over the exact same spatial monopolization.
That was on historic canals, though.
The outrage is fundamentally about class and tone deafness. I mean, take the massive just married signs projected around the arena, spelled with a giant $sign.
That's just pop culture camp.
To a commuter sweating on a delayed, rerouted train under Penn Station, that is not a cute Easter egg. It feels like a middle finger. It's a grotesque symbol of excess.
I think you're reading too much into a graphic design choice.
And this excess wasn't just felt by the public outside. According to unconfirmed but widely circulated tabloid reports this morning, the event was 10 hours long with heavy non-disclosure agreements.
Again, tabloids.
Some guests reportedly felt less like they were celebrating a marriage and more like they were fulfilling a mandatory obligation in an egotistical spectacle. There were even rumors that she planned to perform at her own wedding.
Okay. Using anonymous tabloid gossip to back up a critique of a private wedding is analytically weak.
Even if it's just a rumor, the public's eagerness to consume it shows how desperate they are to puncture this display of wealth.
But the suggestion that performing at her own wedding is an act of ego, that completely misunderstands her identity. She is a generational songwriter. Music is how she communicates.
Performing for 10 hours?
If Stevie Nicks and Tim McGraw are on stage, her stepping up to sing a song at her own celebration is an act of artistic sharing, not megalomania.
It still feeds the spectacle.
Relying on those kinds of rumors just proves my point. The public and the media are projecting their own economic anxieties onto a woman who is simply executing a private milestone, the only way her fame allows.
But the $sign?
The $sign in JUST married is clearly a self-aware, campy nod to her own public mythology. It's not a malicious taunt at commuters. When we demand that global icons act like ordinary citizens, we ignore the fact that society has stripped them of the ability to live ordinarily.
Well, the campiness of a $sign is a luxury only the ultra-wealthy can afford to find amusing.
I just think it's meant to be fun.
Regardless of whether music is her primary language or if the sign was a joke, the core issue remains the physical footprint of the event. A city is a living, breathing ecosystem built on collective access.
New York shuts down streets all the time.
When we allow that ecosystem to be partitioned off and sold as a private fortress for VIPs who signed NDAs, we are endorsing the privatization of the public square.
What about the UN General Assembly, the Thanksgiving Day Parade?
Yes, New York adapts to massive events, but those events possess a fundamental civic utility or a diplomatic mandate. A private wedding, no matter how famous the bride is, has neither.
It's still a culturally significant event.
It is the unilateral imposition of private will onto a public space. And that sets a very dangerous precedent for how city infrastructure can be leveraged by the highest bidder.
Well, when we synthesize all the complex mechanics of this event, my perspective really remains the same. The Madison Square Garden wedding is the ultimate reflection of modern fame colliding with physical reality.
It certainly collided with Penn Station.
We are looking at a self-made billionaire who has survived 20 years of microscopic media scrutiny and very real documented security threats. She required a logistical fortress because her fame leaves her no safe alternative. And while the city disruption was immense, much of the societal anger aggressively ignores the massive philanthropic offsets. It unfairly targets the bride, revealing a society that still loves to deploy double standards against powerful women.
Well, my perspective remains that while the security threats around global megastars are undeniable, the deliberate decision to paralyze a major city's most vital transit hub on a historic holiday weekend is an indefensible display of billionaire privilege.
Even with the charity?
Yes. Deploying tens of millions to national charities does not erase the immediate economic devastation inflicted on local small businesses, nor does it justify diverting taxpayer-funded police resources. This event is a stark case study in how the ultra-wealthy are increasingly allowed to purchase and monopolize public space.
Leaving ordinary citizens to deal with the consequences?
Exactly.
Ultimately, both of these realities really exist at the same time. This wedding has undeniably instantly cemented itself as the defining cultural moment of 2026.
Oh, absolutely. People will talk about it for decades.
Right. On one hand, it represents a staggering fairy tale triumph for a cultural icon, culminating in a literal fortress built in the center of the world's most famous arena.
And on the other hand, it perfectly encapsulates the modern tension between our obsession with celebrity culture and our very real economic anxieties. It really forces us to examine the breaking point of city infrastructure when it meets limitless private capital.
It's just a fascinating expansion of a concept we take for granted. We all understand a wedding as an intimate, personal milestone.
Right, family and friends.
But when you scale that milestone to the proportions of a global superstar, the logistics stop being personal. They immediately become a matter of public policy.
The private celebration becomes a public disruption,
Which in turn becomes a public debate. And it leaves every observer with a critical question to answer for themselves. Where exactly is the ethical line between a high-profile individual's right to celebrate safely and a city's fundamental right to function freely?
That's the million-dollar question. Or, I guess, the $26 million question.
We will leave you to consider where that line should be drawn. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to Deep Dive.
We'll see you next time.